tip.
Good afternoon. It is April 26, 2018. You're listening to a Little Column A, Little Column B, hosted by Will Limonos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? We're back. We're officially back.
See, that's becoming the intro where we don't do podcasts frequently enough that we're like, hey, we're back again. Hey, we do this again.
I think that might just have to be our thing. Not doing it so infrequently, but just always saying we're back and getting excited about it.
So if we do one tomorrow, we're going to say we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Yep.
We're back again.
Oh man, now I think we have to do a pod tomorrow.
Well, we might have to. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter one, but we got a whole bunch of topics to get to. We're going to do our best to get through all of them in a convenient fashion, so all of our schedules can continue to roll. But let's just dive right into all this NBA talk. I know we did an entire NBA podcast. This will not be an entire NBA podcast like the other one. I just want to wrap up a couple series here. We made our predictions, but let's just talk some headlines here. First of all, New Orleans with the sweep, which I don't think anybody saw coming. A very dominant sweep. Complete dominant sweep. So did you think, like, I knew Anthony Davis was good. And he's been in the playoffs before, right? Like, this isn't the first time, but this is the first wins
Correct,
he got.
He's been there before.
In the first series he's won.
Yeah,
How impressed were you by him?
He got swept by Golden State a few years back. Oh, he's been awesome. That was one of the later games, so I didn't get to see that one as much, but I read up a lot about it. I had Drew Holiday on my fantasy teams here, so really was. I think he just like for. I think it was a brain tumor, like a very serious health concern. So he didn't play just to stay with her, as I'm sure any husband would. But he didn't like lose how to play basketball. So I think having the full year has definitely helped him. And I mean, he plays well at both ends of the floor.
A very, very impressive and just flat out dominant victory for the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, a lot of the topics we're going to get to today are teams going forward. So Portland has this phenomenal year. They fight to get the 3 seed. They do all this talk of Dame Dollar and McCollum. We're one of the best combos in the league. You guys are talking about Klay Thompson and Curry and Toronto with DeMar and Lowry. We're in that group. We want to be in that discussion. And finally, everyone kind of says, all right, you know what? Look what you guys just did. This is impressive. Maybe you are in the conversation. And then they get swept like this. So I ask you, going forward, are you ever going to trust these guys again? Or is this a fluke or is this a trend? What's going on here? Because this is once again a disappointing year for Portland with all the young talent and all the rebuild going, I think, according to plan.
They're locked in cap-wise with this team unless they make a major move. There's been rumors about, hey, should we trade CJ McCollum for somebody? I don't see any obvious path forward. I don't put them all the way up with Toronto of, like, they have just got, is it skeletons? They got skeletons they have to shake? What's the term for that? Like, they got, like, ghosts or something just chasing them. But if they have another disappointing year next year, especially if they're, a top seed, he gets swept. Ooh, yeah, now you're starting to get into that Toronto area where, did you hear? They've had 2 Game 7s, and they said their next game is a Game 7. So I don't know what Toronto's going to do when they actually get to Game 7, because that'll be their 4th Game 7 in the first round.
That seems to be a trend that they do every year. It always goes very deep, and I don't think first round series going 7 is something a lot of teams should be worried about. Plenty of teams, the Celtics. When we won, I think we went back to back Game 7s. The first 2 series, at least one of those went Game 7.
Correct.
And
yep, against Atlanta and then against Cleveland, both went 7.
And we still went on to win the championship. So I don't think early series going 7. I think a lot of these teams are just getting used to the intensity of the playoffs. I think one thing that's not being talked about enough is just how tough the competition is all across the NBA. There's no guaranteed wins. There's no favorites anymore. There's certainly a few of them, but I would say for the most part, a lot of these teams are vulnerable every game. Every game you got a chance to win. That has made it a very exciting playoffs. The only series that was disappointing was the New Orleans-Portland series that we just talked about. But while we're on the topic of some disappointing, we do have some disappointing news that everybody's aware of with the loss of Popovich and his wife. Loss of Popovich's wife, obviously a huge tragedy for the Spurs. They've already had a very complex and dramatic year with Kawhi Leonard going on, a bunch of injuries. The team and kind of that core is aged to a point. They're just not quite as effective as they've been in the past. But with all that being said, what does their future look like with this? Do you think Kawhi Leonard? Has anyone talked to him? You think has anyone communicated with him? Do you think he has any interest in coming back? Do you think all the emotion of this team and the support of the city is going to bring him back? Or are they all just shipping away? Is Manu going to retire? Parker's going to retire? Powell's going to retire? And Pop's going to take a year off? What does the future in San Antonio look like to you?
Well, I kind of threw out the idea that Kawhi was just going to be done with basketball as a hot take, but I wonder if he saw what happened to Isaiah Thomas last year, of a guy that played through an injury, then was dinged up, and now Isaiah Thomas is losing out on a ton of money because of this hip issue. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a moment going forward that anytime a guy's hurt, they look back and like this is the moment when players start to say, "Hey, you know what? I don't have to push through this. This is legitimately messing with my money, and I don't feel right." Kawhi tried to come back midway through the year and play a few games, and he didn't feel right to him, and he had to sit down again. So I'm wondering how much of it is just I am not going to play until I am 100% sure that I'm good to go, and so I can make sure that my career isn't derailed by some sort of injury.
Okay, so along the lines of the Popovich tragedy, I just thought it was really cool to see the love and surrounding support of everybody from the not only just San Antonio in that community, but the entire NBA, and just to see how much respect this guy has gained. Now I'm going to ask you this because I thought this was really fascinating, and I don't know the entire details of it all, but when the news finally broke, I saw LeBron James had just won a game, and he's literally walking off the court for a post game interview while still on the court. And the reporter brings it up and tells him the news of the loss of Popovich's wife. I thought he handled it like brilliantly, and it just was really, really sincere, and it seemed like a very good reaction. But on the flip side of that, I don't is that fair? Is that fair to LeBron? Do you think he was prepped beforehand on that, or do you think he was just completely blindsided by a very, very tragic news? I know Pop is close with LeBron. I don't know who to blame in all this, but this just didn't seem like the right moment or the right time to have that conversation. I give LeBron credit for handling it, but what do you think? Do you think that was proper?
So I saw the reaction on Twitter, and everybody was just out for blood with this reporter about how, hey, this isn't the time or place, like this isn't what you should be doing. And then follow up the next day, or later on, like hours later on Twitter, the reporter got out and told people, but obviously after the fact, she had got a hold of LeBron beforehand and had asked him, or said like, hey, this happened. Do you mind if I ask you about it? And he agreed to it. So it was not a blindside at all.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about it. I still thought even with a little bit of warning beforehand, he still handled it really, really well. So shout out to
I'm not sure
LeBron.
what it adds.
What's that?
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure what it adds. I think it's more of a press game a post game press conference question where he's gotten a chance to take a shower, get the clothes on, kind of process the news a little bit, and then you ask him at the podium, not immediately after the game. Because I don't know, immediately after the game, it's always just like, oh, well, you won the game. Like, how did that feel? And it's always like, they're not real answers. Like, oh man, felt real great, felt good. What else are you gonna say?
It's you're right off the court.
Like a real question. Yeah.
It's certainly a more of a it's more of an interview question than a post game question. I get what you're getting at here.
Yeah.
But shout out to the NBA for the support of Popovich, and we're all mourning for his loss. And I thought once again LeBron did a great job of representing the NBA and really representing all of sports and just what this is truly about and what it can be about.
It's unfortunate that it takes something like this to kind of bring everybody together, but it is cool. I'm on the NBA Twitter, and you're with different fans, and it's just constantly just bickering back and forth. And this player is awful. No, this player is awesome. No, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. And just when something like this happens, and everyone just kind of puts that all aside and recognizes, like, hey, this is a really crappy situation. They've been married for like decades, like a really long time, and just kind of like, hey, whatever we could do to help, it just kind of came together as one kind of collective family.
Well, I don't mean to continue some unfortunate situations here, but the next topic I want to roll into is this Josh Allen situation. Now, I don't really want to break down the tweets, and I don't really care what the topic is. Clearly, I think we can all agree that these are uh, poorly chosen words, and I don't think that anybody approves the use of them in any way like this. But I specifically kind of want to talk about is should high school mistakes really be held against this guy right now? Because this is going to affect his draft stock. Those who are unaware, Josh Allen is going to be a professional. I assume is still going to be a professional football player, one of the higher draft picks going forward right now. And he recently had some tweets that were dug up from his past when he was in high school. They were, we'll just describe them as obscene and inappropriate in all settings. There's no setting where this was going to be okay to say. And it was dug up, and it was just leaked yesterday, and a lot of people believe now it's going to affect his draft stock. But do you think that's fair? Are high school mistakes with you forever, or do you think there's a certain point where you're not the same person? Because I know I'm not the same person I was in high school. Are you? Or is this fair?
Well, a little part of that is, as much as you and I like to maybe not remember this so much, is he is only what 3 years removed from high school. We've been removed a little longer now. So I think part of it is you got to realize, hey, like these tweets are from not that long ago. But I do agree with, hey, the kids in high school, you have to take these. You don't just disregard them and say, oh, you're in high school, these don't matter. But I think you add this to what you're hearing him say now, and just kind of have to have that as like a mix of a person, and just you kind of keep an eye on that going forward. And if there's more incidents, it's oh, okay, there's something going on here. If nothing else happens, maybe then years down the road we can chalk it up to, hey, this was just a high school mistake, and he should have known better, but we're all kind of do stupid stuff when we're teenagers.
I think it was a little bit more serious than just a stupid mistake. I will say about that. And the true test is going to come going forward right now because he's already going to have a lot of attention. He had a lot of attention in college. He's going to have a spotlight on him going forward, especially once this news is broken. Now, there's a couple conspiracies out there, and I think some of them have a little validity here. That certain teams have organized this leak, this tweet leak, and somehow have been holding on to this information until the day before, in an attempt to make his draft stock drop, so that they can get him, and other teams will pass on him. Now that does make some sense. I could see some teams taking advantage of this. I do not approve of this strategy. But chances you think this is true?
I can see the logic of it, but if you take it a step further, now okay, you drop and say he was supposed to be top 5, and then he gets drafted, say in the team. Well, the team that drafted him now doesn't. If that's the case, that's like your first thought about this new team was, oh, they wanted me, so they dug up these tweets and held on to them. Didn't say this wasn't a moral issue. Like, hey, we saw this and we threw it out there immediately. Went, we're gonna hold off until the day before the draft. So this does as much damage as possible. Which I would hope that teams wouldn't do that. That just seems really underhanded.
I think it's way too professional of a organization to do something like that. This is not some, underground, no rule, anything goes kind of organization. But I don't know the details of the behind the scenes sort of things, and I do know, one good draft pick or one bad draft pick will certainly change your organization's future. You screw up one year, and it's a very unforgiving league, especially with draft picks.
Well,
I mean, how many times?
remember 2 years ago, I think it was the day of the draft. I think his first name is Jeremy Tunsil. Somebody leaked that video of him doing it was the mask bong, and it was like right beforehand, and he slipped in the draft because it was all of a sudden it was this new information. So this isn't a new tactic. It's just a matter of where it's coming from.
Well, it's an interesting thing going forward. We'll see if it actually affects his draft stock. I mean, there's a chance that this is an attempt to scare a team from drafting him and hoping somebody else can get him. I would just say if you truly believe in the value of him and you believe in the organization around you and you think you can, I don't know, cope with these sort of difficult situations and help the kid. I mean, maybe the kid needs help. I don't know. Maybe this is something he needs to work on going forward. If you don't want that project, at least just keep that in the back of your mind. But if you think it's something, if you think he's still going to be a professional and help your organization, I still see value in that. But he's going to have the spotlight on him going forward. But speaking of other high schools, I just recently saw that Alabama high school football is going to have instant replay. I don't know about your high school, which is my high school. We didn't have no replay. We barely had lights. we barely had a field.
What are you talking about? We definitely had lights.
You know what I mean. We were not on this level.
I played under the lights a lot of times.
We were not on this level.
I'm not letting you take that away from me. We only had one guy with a video camera, or maybe two.
Anyways, I will call ours pure amateurism. And does Alabama just take football that more serious that this is a legitimate thing? This is happening. They're going to have instant replay for a high school football game.
I just wonder, how are you going to pay for that? It just seems like I'm seeing on the news all the time, and maybe it's not specifically Alabama, but across the states that, teachers are just struggling to get, up-to-date textbooks and just simple, pen and paper or just whatever they need. And now the school resources are going to go towards instant replay, where high school, it doesn't really matter. And I feel like people are getting more and more upset with the professional league with the replay. I'm like, this is just taking forever. Now you're at a high school game and you're gonna have to wait while the umpires go under the hood. It just seems like it's gonna point out if people are already mad with NFL referees, professionals.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to give the responsibility to a high school referee to ask him to be so reliant on all of this. It's going to be challenging going forward. I don't know if referees are going to be naturally prepared and trained to handle this sort of situation. It'll just be interesting. And certainly, I feel like budget cuts were something we talked about in our high school every year. Every year it was like, which sport's going to go? Which one's going to not make it through? And now that now that I don't know, maybe things are just more affordable now. It just seems like such a different era. I suppose earlier you talked about how high school was a long time for us. It wasn't just a couple of years ago like some of these guys. You still there? And we've lost Zach, so welcome to the Will Limino Show. I'm
still here.
For those of you who
I was just listening. I'm a very good listener. I want to hear what you had to say.
Very good listener.
I've been getting some notes lately that I talk too much on the podcast and I should listen to what you have to say a little more.
Nobody has ever said that. If anything, they said, Will, you should let Zach talk more. So we were talking about how some of the difficulty and possible technology things here. All right, are these refs already prepared and ready to handle this sort of stuff? Are they? Is there a class already being trained? There has to be some sort of. It's not as straightforward. I imagine there has to be some sort of techniques and strategy to operating this. Is somebody going to be on the sideline with the booth ready to go?
I would think there would have to be something like that. It just seems like a huge expense to, just like you said, classes, all the equipment, and it could just be spent better.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this goes going forward, but it's interesting to see that this is something that's obviously important to Alabama and to their high school football. It just feels like it's that much more of a priority, and I'll be interesting to see where they get the money from and what other budget cuts you think they are making for this. Because budget cuts are every high school's talk every year. I feel like every high school has that. There's always that half day, like 2 times, 3 times a year or whatever, where there's budget. Budget is it's budget day, and those teachers know those days and they dread those days.
Yeah.
But
I think the money could be spent. It could be spent other ways, and you don't even necessarily need it at the higher levels. Everyone's playing with the same referees, and definitely in high school, it's just
Now,
Just play. Just
l-
play.
l-
This isn't.
let me ask you this. Now, I
I
know
know it's I know it's Alabama football, but it'll be okay.
is high school still 1 foot in as a catch on the sideline, right?
In
Yeah, it's 1 foot in college right now, right? So that does. I'm just saying I think the idea in college was that we don't want to make all these really tough judgment calls. Let's make it 1 foot, and we will have less controversy. Hopefully people will just be in more frequently.
mm-hmm. And it's easier to see. Just
Yeah.
right.
So I wonder with this instant replay, do you think they'll make any rule adjustment? And this is immediately going to be 2 feet in.
I don't think
Yeah, that'll be challenging going forward. Well, you know what? We got one more little educational sort of talk conversation topic here. Hopefully Zach's service gets a little bit better so we can chat. But apparently there was a boycott, and it led to everybody getting an A on the exam. Now I don't really know the entire story because it's Zach's topic, but hopefully he can tell you about it.
yeah, there's this class. Actually, it was a professor that taught three different classes, and he said, "Hey, this is how I'm going to grade. I'm going to grade on the on a curve, which isn't unusual, and so the person that gets the best grade gets an A, and kind of works your way down from there. Well, this whole class, I think it's individual classes. What they did was they all banded together. They had social media spreadsheets and decided if we all don't take the test, we all get zeros. We'll all get A's.
Oh my God!
That's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what happened.
Wow! What a oh man! There wasn't one kid who was nervous. There wasn't one kid.
Well, this is the thing that they did is, like I said, they had a spreadsheet, and that's why it was kind of more of a boycott, or they call it sit-in or something. They all went. They were in the hallway outside the classroom, but wouldn't go in. That way, everyone could kind of keep an eye on each other.
Because all it would take was one person.
All it took was one person to take it, and all they needed to do was probably randomly fill it out. You could have got a 10 on it, but that would be the A. You would get an A, and everybody else would fail.
Wow! It's nice
And
to
that's
see.
one of the
It's nice to see a team banded together. I have a hard time. I know I couldn't have convinced everybody. If even college or high school, there's no way I would have been able to convince everyone. There would have been
I
one person.
definitely I definitely had this thought in college before, but it was the same as you. Is I might be able to convince a few people, but this is never gonna. Or on top of that, I would have thought, oh, if none of us take it, it's not that we all got like zeros don't count. If you all took it and you all got 80, then yeah, then you get an A. But if you all take it and you all get zeros, then you all just get zeros. It doesn't get bumped up that way.
Yeah, I would have
But
thought
he
everybody goes
credit
in and they put their name on a piece of paper, and then they all get whatever that gets you.
credit to the teacher. I guess he was in the hallway while they were there, like begging for them to come in. Uh, this was at John Hopkins, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like
No, no,
it's a
it's
pretty prestigious.
it's no slouch. Yeah, no, it's a legit school. It's a school
It's
that
a
most
pretty
people.
prestigious school. So kind of one of my things was, oh great, like you're not taking a test. You're juking the system here. You're not getting any smarter, but these kids are probably gonna be all right. And the way the professor kind of why he stuck to it said, hey, you know what? People take tests all the time. This was just the camaraderie and the organization of this was probably was worth more than taking the test, and that was kind of a cool idea. Like you said, you have to have such a leader or a group of leaders to get everybody. One person isn't on board,
I I applaud them. That is amazing. I don't think
and
I've ever heard
and
that good of an execution. Is it never works? It
and
never works. Any sort of scheme you come up with in school, it never works. It might kind of
and
work. You might be able to get by, but it won't work.
their whole kind of tagline was you doing well on your test or you screwing everybody else over isn't going to help you anymore. Like we're all we're all going to get 100 or just you get 100 and the rest of us are screwed. So it doesn't do you any good. Like you can't get any higher.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it makes total sense. It makes complete sense. I just, there have been
Now,
one kid somewhere who's like parents have peer pressured them into like a super high GPA or whatever, and they would be panicked by the possibility of the professor saying, "All right, well, none of you took it, so you all get zeros instead." It just seems a little
yep.
risky in that way.
Or you're concerned that one other person is
Does
gonna
does go
go in and
take it.
take the test and like slip through the cracks somehow. But here's my thinking, just taking it a level further with just kind of a economic sort of mind, where even though it's not morally or it's not socially acceptable, but in a lot of cases there's just like a monetary value. There's a dog barking next door. There's a certain monetary value that you're willing to spend to make sure that dog goes away. It doesn't really work like that in the real world, but that's just kind of the way economists think about things. My thought was somebody like you that you're not as concerned about school as some of these other kids, and you're just kind of feeling a little fast and loose, and you say, oh, you know what? I'm fine to go along with your plan, but I want $200.
Yeah, yeah, that
What
would have
happens
been.
there? Like now it's okay, all right, yeah, I'm fine with getting the A, but I would have been fine with getting a C. So this is above what I really want. So and then you could easily threaten, you know, hey, if you don't give me $200, I'm going in and taking that test, and the rest of you are gonna get zeros. So you all better cough up a dollar.
So, all right, let me ask you this. Just there's no way you're gonna know this, but how many of those kids you think studied the night before? How many of them you think?
Ooh,
How many think were actually prepared for in case this all blows up in our face? Who was actually ready? Because there was definitely a majority of kids who are like, no, it has to work. It's gonna work. There's no way I'm even opening the textbook. But how many of them, let's
ooh.
say class of 25, how many of them actually studied the night before?
I'm gonna go with at least 40% cracked the book open, or I guess that's a pretty old-fashioned thing to say. Went online or studied, did some sort of, hey, let me take a look. Let me look at the syllabus real quick. Start, and there were definitely another group, and there's probably some overlap, but not two different groups that went and said, if I get a zero on this test, what's the best grade I can get in this class?
Yeah,
Like, ooh,
that
I'm
was
kind of already
definitely.
on academic probation. Ugh, is this gonna get me kicked out of school? Where am I?
Oh man, that's so cool. You know what? Good for them. Good for them. If the majority of society could group together, band together like that, we would get a lot more stuff done.
Right? Yeah.
Now, what's was the professor facing any sort of consequences? Is there a follow up to this story, or are we gonna have to keep an eye on it?
We'll have to keep an eye on it. Yeah, the article was not super long, but there was nothing in there saying, "Hey, the president was looking into it." I don't know. With professors, it's always tricky because they have tenure, so it's kind of, hey, you do what you want to do, and as long as you don't do any Josh Allen tweets, you're okay.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you don't do that. So if you're that professor though, are you changing this rule, or are you going forward with it?
You have to, otherwise, no one's ever going to take your test again.
Yeah, you're changing it. All right, you're changing it. Well,
You
speaking of
have
making
to.
some changes, at least on the second
Well,
try.
it's one of those rules that you read in the syllabus, and you're like, why is that a rule? That's so weird. It's because there was some group or there was some person that always does something wacky that you have to make a rule for that person forever because of that.
If they could all coordinate getting the same score, like you said, that would be the next step. I would say, where the professor's like, it's got to be
That's
like,
a lot harder.
it's a lot harder. It's if anything, it's impossible.
Yeah, that one's a lot trickier.
Could you imagine everyone saying, "All right, we're all gonna put A on the first answer, and that's it."
Yeah, I think he's gonna change his approach. I don't know exactly how, but I believe he's gonna change it.
Well, speaking of changing your approach, or maybe not being so successful on your first approach, there's a story about a man who is apparently suing a woman because she did not go on a second date with him. Uh,
Yeah,
what happened here? Why is this a story? And I don't know why we're talking about it,
I
but tell me why we should be talking about it.
I feel like we kind of touched upon something like this before. So Guy and a girl meet, go on a date. I guess the girl wasn't too thrilled with it, so she just kind of ghosted the guy, and he's texting her asking for a second date. She doesn't respond, so he sent an invoice to her house for the first date.
Just a
Now,
straight
to
up bill.
me, yeah, just sent her a bill. Now, I what do you think is the best case scenario for him? I can't imagine that wherever they went to dinner was that expensive, where you really wanted that $50, $100, whatever that is, back. Is it more that you're just so emotionally upset about this? You're really looking to stick it to someone to say like, this is how upset I am. But I can't imagine this. How is this going to help him down the road?
It's the only way it helps him is he actually gets payment. There's no gain of this. I think he's already given up, and he's just saying, "All right, well, you're not gonna go out with me again, but maybe, just maybe, I can get some payment out of all this, and I'll feel a little bit better about
But
it."
but I don't think that's how a date is supposed to work.
No, 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 it's not. It obviously went terrible. I imagine this date was a disaster from the start. And then he was like, not only was this awful, this woman hated me or had no interest in me, but I had to buy two. And he said, you know what? I would have been able to live with myself if I hadn't paid for everything as well. It's just a Hail Mary. That's what I view this as. I think it's just a pure attempt to say, I have no power right now, and there's nothing I can do to make this situation better other than possibly getting some money back.
See, you're more going on his side. I'm more going on the. This guy sounds like a jerk, and I think he was a jerk during the date, and that's probably why this happened. And probably why she was like, I don't never want to see that guy again. He was a jerk.
All right, just outside looking in again, you probably don't know the answer to this question, but who do you think's making more money, the man or the woman in this story? Who's got the better paying job?
Hmm.
Because I got a feeling that
I
this sort of situation really only happens if the guy just is familiar with who this person is and what their employment is, and this is the only reason I think you would make that sort of attempt to saying, "Look, I'm just Joe Schmo, and you're, CEO of so and so."
well, and then I'm not sure exactly how this invoice works, but what's stopping her from just tearing it up and throwing it away?
Oh no, she no. This is not a mandatory invoice. This has just been received and now is a
Just
story.
a
You
just
don't. She
a
doesn't
oh,
have to pay it.
I hope you feel. But does he think that maybe this is gonna make her come back to him, or
No,
he's just burning all his bridges and just
uh,
it's just
the bridge is already burned. There's just a chance that maybe she'll throw a dollar at him across the river. All right, it's done. That's all. That's all she's. That's
do
all
you,
he's trying to get.
do you think this is the first or the last time that he's done this?
This is definitely a move he's done before. You know what? I bet the only reason he's doing it, and if he's done it before, it's because it worked one time. It must have worked once. If this isn't the
Oh
first
man.
time and he's done
Do,
it before, that means it's worked.
so do you think that he's got this sort of system where he goes on a first date, and then if it's bad, he tries to get his money back, so then he's good to go on a first date with a different girl, and it just goes down the waterfall that way?
Yes, it's a pyramid scheme, right? No,
Hmm,
I, I
interesting.
I don't know, but I just if he's done this before, the only reason he's done it again is because it worked one time. I'll say that. I don't know. Otherwise, there's no gain for it. I don't know how many tries it took for it to finally work and finally become a story. I just imagine. I don't. How do you find out about this? Like, who wrote this? What newspaper? Like, is this
I don't know. I just
is this
find
a
stuff. I'm
journalist?
just
Is this a
looking around.
journalist? Like, is this his personal life right now? He's like, I'm just a writer. Nobody buys my newspaper anymore because nobody buys newspapers.
And no one will go on dates with him.
I don't know,
Struggling.
but that's maybe I don't know. I don't know what the gain is about this. It's just a funny story. It's a silly story. But speaking of silly and crazy and wild stories, I've been recently getting my haircut by my roommate. I finally bought some decent clippers. The haircuts are expensive for one. I don't know if that's something I don't think I've talked about ever on the podcast. But for all of you out there, which all of you are doing this, haircuts are expensive. If you're a woman, you're going to the salon, very expensive. But I think male haircuts have certainly jumped in price, and they have all these extra stuff in there thrown in that may or may not really be necessary, but I think a lot of people have gotten used to some of these amenities. But we got a crazy story here. It's called the fire haircut. They literally light your hair on fire and like comb it in a couple different directions while spraying some sort of it's like an airsoft can. So like as you spray it, the flame like increases, and I don't really understand what the gain of it is, but the fact that this is a thing, uh, just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So I'll ask you, where are you getting your fire haircut anytime soon, or are you staying away from that?
Well, one, this is exactly how he described it. This guy's hair is on fire, but it's like a controlled fire. But definitely worth, if you just Google, like you said, fire haircut, this is gonna come up. It's worth the 20 seconds to see this. I am not doing that. That guy had long hair. I have short hair. I've got a buddy that's been cutting my hair for a while now, and I think I would burn my head burn my head really quickly. There's not a lot to be setting on fire before that hair is gone.
I will say that the hairstyles in the video, I'm looking at the video right now, it looks pretty good. It does not look comfortable. The guy in the chair looks very scared and concerned. Uh, but
Yeah, his hair's on fire.
yeah, this
Uh,
it can't be.
anytime there's a fire that close to you, you're supposed to be nervous. It's just human nature.
What there's some say? What is it? Pain is beauty, or beauty's pain? Something like that. Like it hurts to look
Is
good.
that a thing?
I think that's a thing. I don't know. It sounds like a thing.
I know you don't like follow-up questions. Did you happen to see how much this fire haircut costs?
No.
I would think it'd have to be more expensive than a regular haircut just because it's so unique. But I would like to think that it'd be the other way. Like, hey, Will, I'll pay you to get a fire haircut because it's dangerous. Like, you get hazard pay if you're an oil worker and it's more dangerous.
Do you think this is an additional license this barber and or hair salon person had to acquire?
Oh, it has to be.
I'm also
like, you gotta get the fire marshal down
yeah.
there. I wonder if the fire marshal has to be there in person while you do this.
I don't know. I don't know what. That was a really loud noise. Turn that off. I don't know. I don't know what the cost of this would be or what I would pay for it. I can't imagine a scenario where I would actually want to do this either. I will say this though. What do you think the lease or the landlord kind of has agreed to for this local small barber shop? This that's suddenly
he doesn't know.
just suddenly throwing around some flames. Well, for all of you getting haircuts out there, they are a little expensive. They are a little pricey, but I would stick to what you are doing and do not look up the fire haircut. But fun podcast. Going to wrap it up a little early today. Make sure you check out the website, lcalcb.wordpress.com. Make sure you check out Zach's Twitter, which is
Wicked Z-Man 24.
Also, for all of you in San Diego, make sure you check out Sold by Will for all your San Diego real estate needs. You can search properties on there. You can ask questions. You can find out more information on the buying process. Everything you need to know, soldbywill.com, and feel free to reach out if something doesn't make sense. Going forward, we did make a March Madness bet. We're going to make sure to handle that in the next upcoming weeks. Hopefully, we'll get another podcast in next week. Life's just been a little hectic, a little busy. All good stuff, though. But Zach and I do hope to continue doing weekly podcasts, not every 2 weeks. Also,
we're gonna get back onto it. We're gonna crack down. We're gonna get that under control.
Also, for all the regular listeners and even first-time listeners, we did have a winner of the March Madness tournament, and they did not reach out,
right.
So we did not get a guest on the podcast. Now, that just seems like a shame. I think some people were looking forward to being a guest or have the possibility to listen to a guest. So I will throw it out there. If anyone wants to be on there, they have a topic they think would be appropriate for us or something that they find of interest, and something, it could just be a topic if you want to just throw it out there, or if you actually want to come on the show, you're more than welcome to. So feel free to reach out to us, either Zach's Twitter, my website, or our podcast website. With that being said, you got anything else to add, Zach?
I really want to push that whoever wants to do that also has to do your penalty because they didn't win March Madness. I won March Madness, so I get to make the rules.
Well, That's not gonna happen.
But I don't think we're gonna get anybody to do that. So
Nobody's gonna want to do that. But we will be back next week. I promise we'll be back next week. But with that being said, we're all set for today. I'm gonna let the music play out, and we'll be back. We'll be back anyways. We're gonna start the show with that anyways, right? We might as well end the show with "We'll be back" too.
Yep.
We'll be back.